Welcome to NFL Nexus. You know, in the NFL, stability is like gold. And for almost 20 years, the Pittsburgh Steelers were basically Fort Knox. They were built on this foundation of tough defense and, of course, the steady hand of one head coach. Well, that era is officially over. Today, we are breaking down what has to be the most critical offseason in the Steelers' recent history. This is a story about a team intentionally blowing up its own identity, grabbing onto a brand new offensive vision, all while holding its breath, waiting on a future Hall of Fame quarterback to make up his mind. It's a tale of what's certain versus what is a massive, massive question mark. And believe me, the answer is going to define this team for years to come.
All right, so to really get a grip on just how huge this is for Pittsburgh, here's how we're going to break it all down. We're going to start with that massive change at head coach and the complete 180 in philosophy that comes with it. Then, we'll look at the first big move they made, the first player they brought in, and what that tells us about their new offensive identity. From there, we dive straight into the deep end with the giant quarterback question that's hanging over everything. We'll look at why the team is being so patient, and finally, we'll put all the pieces together to see what Pittsburgh's unwritten future might just look like.
Okay, so everything, and I mean everything, kicks off right here. The biggest change in Pittsburgh isn't a new player or some fancy new scheme. It's the guy at the very top. After 17 seasons of just unbelievable consistency under Mike Tomlin, a guy who's for sure going to the Hall of Fame, the organization is turning the page. Now think about it. For a team that's been defined for so long by its hard-nosed defense, its identity literally forged in the image of the Steel Curtain, this isn't just a coaching change. No. This is a very deliberate and kind of risky pivot toward a whole new offense-first philosophy.
And this right here, this slide really shows you just how massive this change in thinking is. On the one side, you've got the legacy of Mike Tomlin. 17 seasons, not a single losing record. I mean, that's just a testament to his incredible ability to build a culture of toughness and defensive dominance. His whole thing was, the standard is the standard. And that standard was all about stopping the other guys from scoring. Now look to the right. After Tomlin's shocking retirement, the Steelers hired only their 17th head coach in the history of the franchise, Mike McCarthy. And this isn't just a new face, it's a completely new ideology. McCarthy's an offensive architect. He's a Super Bowl champion whose whole career has been about lighting up the scoreboard. He comes from that Bill Walsh coaching tree, and his mission is crystal clear. Turn this offense from just a part of the team into its main weapon. And he's not passing the buck either. He's already said he will be calling every single offensive play in 2026, putting the team's success or its failure right on his own shoulders.
So, you've got this new philosophy, right? But how do you actually start making it a reality? Well, it begins with a really clear statement. This wasn't just some talk at a press conference. It was followed up right away with a big-time player acquisition that is basically the blueprint for the kind of team McCarthy wants to build. This move is the first real fingerprint of the McCarthy era on this roster, and it's sending a signal to the whole league about the Steelers' new direction.
So McCarthy goes on the Pat McAfee show recently, and he gets asked about the team's trade for wide receiver Michael Pittman Jr. His answer was just one word: perfect. Now, you have to understand, coaches almost never talk in absolutes like that. They'll say things like talented, or he's a good fit, or a real hard worker. But perfect, wow, that tells you that Pittman isn't just another good player they picked up. He is the literal physical embodiment of what Mike McCarthy wants his offense to look like, to feel like, and to play like. It's a seriously powerful statement that tells you everything you need to know about the system he's bringing to town.
Okay, so what does he really mean when he says perfect? I mean, that's a huge word for a coach to use, right? That single word is just loaded with meaning about his vision for this offense. So let's deconstruct it. We need to break down exactly what this trade for Michael Pittman Jr. is telling us about the Steelers' new-look offense and really dig into all the different layers that make him the absolute perfect fit for this brand new system.
Let's start with the obvious, his physical profile. McCarthy has always valued size and toughness in his players. And at 6'4", 225 pounds, Pittman is an absolute unit. He gives his quarterback this massive target, a guy who can go up and win those 50-50 balls downfield and be a beast in the red zone. But here's the key, and it's the second point on this slide: he is a phenomenal blocker. In McCarthy's version of the West Coast offense, it's simple. If you don't block, you don't get the rock. And Pittman doesn't just block, he actually looks for contact. He takes pride in springing big runs. He's almost like having an extra tight end out on the edge. Now, think about this. He's slated to be the number 2 receiver opposite their established star DK Metcalf, who they got in that blockbuster trade last season. For years, defenses could just double-team Metcalf. Now, it's a true pick-your-poison situation, with 2 big, physical receivers on the field. Pittman gives them that legitimate, reliable second option this offense has been dying for.
Now, beyond just his physical tools, this is where it gets really, really interesting. Pittman brings this incredible, game-changing versatility. McCarty specifically pointed out his ability to play all three main receiver spots. He can be the X, the guy on the line of scrimmage who has to beat press coverage. He can be the Z, playing off the line to get a clean release. And most excitingly, he can play the F or the slot position. This is where you get a huge strategic advantage. Just imagine the absolute nightmare of putting a 6'4" receiver like Pittman in the slot, where he's probably going to be covered by some 5'10" nickel corner. That's a mismatch you can exploit all game long, especially on third downs and in the red zone. And this ability to move him around like a chess piece, it has a massive ripple effect on how you build your roster. With Pittman able to fill any role, wide receivers suddenly isn't this desperate need heading into the draft.
So here's the big takeaway, the thing you really need to understand. Michael Pittman Jr. isn't just a player. He is an enabler for the entire offensive system McCarthy wants to run. McCarthy calls his philosophy concept football. It's not just about memorizing plays, it's about teaching players the why behind the offense so they can react to what the defense is showing them. And that style needs smart, versatile guys who understand the game. And that is Pittman to a T. It's what lets McCarthy be a true chess master, moving his pieces around to create the matchups he wants on every single play. Plus, his system basically demands having three good receivers on the field at all times, and this move solidifies that group. This gives the GM, Omar Khan, so much freedom as he gets ready for the 2026 NFL Draft, which just so happens to be in Pittsburgh. He doesn't have to force a pick at receiver anymore. He can just sit back and take the best player on the board. So let's just take stock for a second. You have a new, brilliant offensive mind calling the plays. The change in philosophy is clear. You've added a perfect new weapon to the team. The foundation for a powerful, dynamic offense is being laid out piece by careful piece. But all of it, every single play design, every player they bring in, every single hope they have for a championship, it all comes down to the single most important position in all of sports. And that is where this story of clear vision and certainty takes a very sharp, very dramatic turn into the great unknown.
And you know, while the Steelers front office is thinking about that massive question, let's take a quick second. We're only able to do these deep dives here on NFL Nexus because of the amazing support from you guys. So if you're enjoying our work, please think about checking out our new line of NFL-themed coloring books. They're perfect for kids, grandkids, and honestly, they're a great way for adults to just chill out and show some team pride. You can scan the QR code on your screen right now or just use the link down in the description to get yours. Your support really does help us keep making these explainers. Thank you so much. Now, back to that big question.
All right, let's talk about the elephant in the room. And it's not just an elephant. It's the single biggest variable of the entire NFL offseason, not just for Pittsburgh, but for the whole AFC playoff picture. This is the situation that will single-handedly decide whether this new Steelers era starts with a legitimate all-in push for a Super Bowl or with a frustrating, painful search for a whole new direction at quarterback.
So the whole organization is basically stuck in neutral. Star quarterback and future first-ballot Hall of Famer Aaron Rodgers has not committed to playing in the 2026 season. He's taking his time this offseason, thinking things over, checking on his health, and ultimately deciding if he wants to gear up for another run. And this isn't some contract dispute. This is a real personal question about whether he still has that fire to play. And until he makes that call, the Steelers' entire offseason strategy, from who they draft to who they sign, is just hanging in the balance.
So you got to be asking yourself, why? Why would a team with a brand new coach who's dying to install his complex system be okay with just waiting? It kind of seems like the opposite of what you should do. So let's really analyze this high-stakes waiting game. What was it about Rodgers last season, and more importantly, his long and complicated history with the new head coach, that makes it okay to put the entire franchise on pause?
Well, if we look back at his 2025 season, you can see the team's problem crystal clear. On paper, it was a totally respectable year. He led the Steelers to a 10-6 record in the games he started, which gave them a 10-7 record overall and an AFC North title. By any standard, that's a success. He threw for over 3,300 yards with a really efficient 24 touchdowns to only 7 interceptions. That's solid winning football. But the problem, and it's a big one, is that the offense just kind of sputtered out when it mattered most, leading to a quick exit in the wildcard round against a hungry Texans team. So the front office is stuck asking a tough question. Is this level of production from an older Rodgers, as good as it is, really enough to win a championship? And is it worth betting the entire future of the franchise on it?
And, you know, despite all the chatter around the league and the clock ticking on the offseason, Coach McCarthy's just been the picture of calm. He has said publicly that he's fine with this whole thing dragging out. In his own words, it's a process that he's going through, and I'm comfortable with it. But the most important part of that quote is the last part. We've had very, very positive conversations on a weekly basis. That tells you this isn't some silent treatment. There is an open line of communication happening all the time. And that dialogue is what's giving McCarthy the confidence to just let this play out. Because their relationship, well, it's not new. It was built over more than a decade of working together.
And that comfort level, man, it's built on a long, sometimes complicated, but incredibly successful history. McCarthy became the head coach in Green Bay way back in 2006, when Rodgers was still this young, unproven backup. He was the one who coached Rodgers through his development into a superstar, a two-time MVP. Together, they reached the absolute top of the mountain, leading the Packers to a Super Bowl win. Over their 13 years there, they made 9 trips to the playoffs. This isn't just a former coach and player. This is a partnership that won a championship and put a team in contention for almost a decade straight. McCarthy is betting that he can rekindle that magic. That deep, shared history is the #1 reason the Steelers are willing to take this massive risk.
Okay, so when you lay it all out on the table, what you see is that the Steelers' 2026 season is a story of 2 completely different, conflicting halves. On one side, you've got these moves made with total conviction and clarity, the stuff that's set in stone. And on the other side, you have this giant legacy-defining question mark that leaves everything just completely and totally up in the air. It's a fascinating, and I'm sure for Steelers fans, an incredibly nerve-wracking place for a franchise to be.
And this table just lays it out perfectly for us. The certainties on the left, they're compelling. You've got Mike McCarthy, a Super Bowl winner, as your new head coach and play caller. You have a clear, stated shift to an offensive philosophy. You have Michael Pittman Jr., who McCarthy himself called a perfect fit. And there's that commitment to a more versatile style of football. That's a really solid foundation. But now look at the right side. Everything that actually matters, everything that decides their ceiling, is hanging in the balance. Aaron Rodgers' decision is the domino that knocks over all the others. Without him, are they a real Super Bowl contender? Their entire draft strategy is up in the air. And in the end, the offense's ultimate potential, how good they can actually be, is a complete mystery until that one massive question finally gets answered. And that really leaves us with the big, final question that I want you to think about as we wrap this up. Is this patient wait for Aaron Rodgers the right move for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Is it a smart, calculated risk, banking on a championship-winning relationship, thinking that one more run with him is the fastest way to get another ring? Or is it a dangerous gamble that's holding the whole franchise hostage, just delaying the inevitable search for the next guy, and maybe wasting a whole year of this new era? So that's our deep dive into the Steelers' pivotal and fascinating offseason. The story is nowhere near finished, and we will be here on NFL Nexus to cover every single twist and turn. For more analysis just like this, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like this explainer, and most importantly, get down in the comments and tell us what you think. Is Pittsburgh playing this right? We want to hear your take. Thanks for watching.